In a town filled with beloved pediatricians, Dr. Nikki Gorman, better known as Dr. Nikki, stands at the top of the list.
Oh.
A Southern California native who headed east to the University of Pennsylvania, then North Carolina for med school, back to California for her pediatric residency. She helped found a practice on the west side of New York and then landed in Westport and started Village Pediatrics. That was 14 years ago.
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now Dr. Nikki has a new venture, Westport Medical and Wellness Center.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to provide whole body wellness, preventing rather than treating illness and diseases that are often a direct cause of our stressful lives. You offer massage, coaching, counseling, acupuncture, and more. And you opened a couple of weeks ago right behind the CVS parking lot. Welcome, Dr. Nikki, to 06880, the podcast.
Oh, Dan, thank you so much. It is truly such an honor to be here with you. Having followed your career for years and years, and I know you're a native Westporter, I'm truly honored. I can't thank you enough for everything you do for our town and our businesses and our children, which, of course, is at the heart of everything I do as well.
That's
That's
your job. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. So talking about children, let's jump right in. Did you get tired of treating runny noses and answering calls from their worried parents?
Oh, no. I mean, it has been a challenging time during the pandemic, for sure. I think for all physicians, we're all following the what do they call it? The great resignation of physicians. But no, I will never tire of the smiles. There is nothing like being in the room with a newborn and that new set of parents and really helping them begin their parenting journey and supporting them through that. We're very fortunate as pediatricians to see babies from the moment they enter the world until we like to keep our patients, as long as they're comfortable, until they're done with college. So it's a long journey, but there's, a lot to know. So I actually have not given up my pediatric career. I'm still at Village. Village is one of my babies too, as I like to say. I was very fortunate to work alongside Dr. Jennifer Gruen, who started the practice with me, and then we added Robin Abramowitz and Sarah Siegel, and now Stefan Grievous. So a great team. So yes, but I think that the vision behind the Westport Medical and Wellness Center was just, first we started Village and it was great. We actually started in Weston with Jerry Lieberman, but then moved the practice to Westport, Connecticut, because many of our patients were coming from Westport anyway. So, and it just felt like a better fit. So the vision there was to create a true personalized medical home for families and their children. And have a place that they, I always say, if you didn't like the show Cheers, you might not want to come here because we will know your name. We will know, who you are. And that came with...
You don't serve alcohol.
No. Rarely. No, never. There's really something to be said for being out of the very busy model. And there are plenty of busy practices around that provide excellent care. But we were really striving to do this personalized where you get to know the families. And, I always like to, just as one example of this, I always like to tell a story where we knew a particular family very well, as we do all our families, and that's what we strive for. And the husband called on the weekend, which that in itself was a red flag. So, we knew the mother very well, and he said the kids are sick and the mother's sick, and, and so, a little... okay, trying to support him through that. So really going that extra mile, getting a little bit more of the details and talking through it. And he said, yeah, we're up at the lake. And last weekend we were here and the same thing happened. And it had just been a relatively recent thing. I don't know if you remember, a family in Weston actually perished from carbon monoxide on a vacation in Colorado. And it clicked in my head. And because I knew that this mother, that if she was too sick to call and her kids were too sick, and her husband was calling me, there was something really wrong. And so I just said, you need to call the fire department. And so it's that type of, really knowing your patients that I think has always been so dear to us. And it's great for the physician because, they know you too.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how wonderful our patients are. And when I go through personal things, not crossing too many boundaries, but they're all very loving. I feel very blessed every day. So, we created Village. It thrived right away. We actually, I don't remember our last pandemic, a mini pandemic, H1N1. So immediately we were busy. And so that was easy to grow the practice. But one thing that we found, or that I found, was that we have a lot of good pediatricians in town, and we love our practice and the level of care we provide. Occasionally, when someone's moving, we can find them another practitioner, an insurance change, and so that has not been an issue. But the one thing that kept coming up in the exam rooms was that the parents were looking for physicians for themselves. And for years, we had some people to send to, and then honestly, they got full. And
that model has changed.
Yeah. And I really, whereas I used to be able to, call in favors and text and say, oh, can you accept a patient for me? Like they started saying, I really can't. I'm too busy. I can't handle the patient load I have. So while I'd love to be able to accommodate, because I always would say, like, my patients are the best. My patients' parents, they're lovely, they're easy, they tend to be in their 30s and 40s. So honestly, they don't have as many health issues as someone in their 70s, typically. So, but, I realized at that point, and that was probably, 7 years ago, that there was a big dearth of primary care physicians that were able to accept patients. And
so the patients were not taking care of them. They were taking care of their kids,
yes,
but they were not taking care of themselves.
No, yes. And, we've all heard it, put your own oxygen mask on right before you do your child, but it just doesn't happen. When people have children, it's almost this very, it's like a gut instinct, like everything becomes about the child, and they always make sure first and so people will come to a town, actually the first thing they want to do is find a pediatrician. Like they're in the back of their own mind. Mm-hmm. But not having a primary care home is stressful. And as you and I know, life is stressful. And during a pandemic, life is really stressful. So what I found was that people, even if they wanted to take care of themselves, they weren't getting access to that care. Like sometimes we'll diagnose someone in the office with something, the flu, and they'll want to have a place to go to get their own test, and sometimes as a favor we'll do it, but often we know it's better for them to have their own medical home and to have their own physician and a place they can call. And so we kind of ran out of answers, really struggling. And I don't know if you follow any of our great websites. We've got like Westport Parents and the Facebook pages.
Sure.
The amount of times people are asking for primary care doctors is probably, once or twice a week. And there's not, a lot of answers. So you
went to fill that need in a different way.
Yeah. So I wanted to fill that need not only by offering, very personalized primary care, similar to Village, where you really get to know the family and the dynamics, and where your patient works, so that you understand the stresses that go along that, or if they have 3 children at home and the stresses that go along with that. Yes, also, taking in mind, and what I have loved learning about. I've always been, a wellness type person. As physicians, we learn that exercise is good for you. It reduces stress. Eating well is certainly important. And I think over the past 5 years, right, there's been more and more out about meditation, and yoga's been around obviously since the 70s because my mother did yoga. So
before that,
yes, before that even. So delving into when I decided that I was finally going to pull the trigger and I was going to find a primary care doctor for the community that could offer the same level of personalized care. I wanted to also include more wellness as well. And it just so happened that the medical building I was looking at was perfectly set up. So it's almost like it fell in my lap in this beautiful way, and it just made sense.
So how is it set up?
Yeah, so it's a very cool building. It's right behind CVS, as you said, like central and Westport, and everything's 5 minutes away, right? There's the medical area, which of course is like any typical medical area with the exam rooms and clean, and then you need to have your lab and follow your OSHA and your CLIA guidelines. So that, and then right to the right of that, there's a studio that previously had been rented out to an interior designer. The building previously was kind of broken up and had a myriad of people, and I think COVID just killed it. So that studio was very easy. I mean, there's no doubt it needed to be a yoga, meditation, seminar studio. So that, very easily. And it even has its own separate entrance on the other side. So everything just works. And then on the other side of the kind of building, there's something called an annex. And in that space, we're able to have our office where we convene as a team, physicians, office managers, talk about the vision of the wellness center and, a whole round table thing going. And then there's 2 other offices over there, which, currently we've got a suite that has acupuncture and massage. And and then we have another suite that, we're actually looking to rent out to probably another practitioner. And then upstairs, so I don't know, you probably remember we have these beautiful stairs of inspiration. So that was done by Curry Heftman, who I have to give a big shout out to. She's an artist in the community, and she just does such loving and, embracing art. So she very generously offered to paint these stairs of affirmation. Anyone should come by and see it and just look at it, because it really is very affirming. And yes, it's all that you are wonderful. And so you rise up those stairs to the top. And previously that space actually had, unfortunately, it had been used for many years by just a couple practitioners. It hadn't really been updated. The lovely psychologist who had been there burned candles. So actually the walls were black. The carpet was black. We ripped out the carpet, and there was wood underneath. Like everything that could have gone right went right. So we really transformed that space. And that's where, the vision of having, there's so many wonderful practitioners out there. We've got nutrition, we do have health coaching, we've got an intimacy coach, and all these, and we have speaking today with a woman who's a transformation coach, who's a therapist, who helps people through life transitions. Like all this, while not necessarily being medical, is part of health. And
how'd you find them?
Just pounding the pavement, Dan. I'm a big believer in just getting the word out there. And people they hear about us and they're like, oh, my friend does acupuncture, or my friend is a health coach. Like, she should come and speak with you. And so we have kind of a shared desk space upstairs for that. And that really is creating a community, because I think that, and I guess you would agree, that during COVID, people have become lonely. There's a lot of working at home. And which has advantages. I love the fact that not so many parents have to commute to New York 5 days a week. They're able to be more present with their kids. When they're done at 5, they can be with their child by 5:30, as opposed to commuting an hour and such. But at the same time, people are, isolated. So some of these practitioners have been working alone, just doing Zoom, and they're ready. They're ready to come to a center where they can all work together in a shared office space and exchange ideas and have a cup of coffee, right? The good old water cooler has to come back. But we're doing it on, we do rent out you rent a shared desk by the month. And then if you have a client you'd like to meet with one-on-one, and they'd like to come in and get that face-to-face, we have a room that's a consult room, and then you can go, and that's more private. So you wouldn't meet with the shared desk, yeah. And then there's also a mental health suite up there where we have one therapist, and we've got a couple other therapists we're talking to. But again, therapists don't necessarily, some of them still do. They have their own office and they want that, and that's their space, and they see, but a lot of therapists are doing 75% of their work online still, or meeting outside. So, but they might like to have a place where, once a week they know, oh, well, every Wednesday morning, Friday afternoon, I'm at the wellness center. So if you want to do in person, let's set up our appointments then.
Is this a new concept? It's obviously new to Westport, but are you
Yeah.
creating something that hasn't been created before?
I think within the health space, the health and wellness space, I am, but shared office space and WeWorks. I don't know if you've watched any of the movies about WeWorks. We actually have a lot of wonderful shared office spaces near us. And now I'm going to blank on the name, and Laura Kaufman's going to kill me. It's going to come to me.
Evolution?
Yeah, Office Evolution.
Evolution.
Yes. So she has been able to run a very successful shared office space. And so that's a similar concept where, people can have a place to work, but they also can meet other people who do similar things. This is a little bit more directed because we're not renting to a hedge fund person and a nutritionist. Like, we're really trying to be very mindful and get people who are in that wellness space and can support each other and exchange ideas. And then the idea behind it is, and we're trying to be very picky. We're not just leasing to anyone. We like to have references and know the practitioners that we're going to be having in the space, because the idea is that Dr. Letha, who has joined us, is going to be referring to some of these people, and so she'll kind of know their personality, and
So how, sort of pulling back from the wellness center and including Village Pediatrics, how has medicine changed since you began practicing?
That is a very good question. In some ways, it hasn't changed. I think that everyone still needs a physician, having someone who understands you, and knows your family, and, evidence-based medicine, we're all very big on. So I think that, the insurance model has been around since I started practicing medicine. So when I left my residency at Stanford and came east, and was in New York City, and then found this opportunity opening the West Side practice for Cornell Medical Associates for the pediatrics. It was an insurance-based model, and the volume was high. I actually was commuting from New York. From Westport after 2 years. So I actually would go in at 8:30, see about 25 patients, sometimes 30, leave by like 3. I didn't take a lunch break. And part of that was so I could get back and be with my kids, kid, soon to be 2. So I was kind of killing myself, and that was the way the model was built. And that was when, I went through my kind of first transformation of, okay, I know how to build a business, and, it was great. We did new mommies groups, really built the practice up, it thrived. But at the end of the day, like, we were being managed by corporate and the insurance model, and they were feeling the pressure to get RVUs and, create income. Primary care in general, unfortunately, is not a moneymaker. Like, a significant part of medicine and physicians and practices make money from procedures. And that's not something that pediatricians and internal medicine have a lot of. So they're really left needing to make their salaries from volume. So I, at that point, had met with Jerry Lieberman, who had a very small practice and was looking to bring in someone younger and, new face of the practice. So I really wanted out of the insurance model. I'll never forget, there was one day to the next where they decided that we were no longer going to have staff on Saturdays. And it was busy. We were seeing newborns. We, were then running our own strep tests, weighing our newborns, like, we're doing everything. And it was unsustainable. So, I was very happy to join Jerry, and Jerry was a wonderful pediatrician. He was open to a lot of the new business ideas I had and just ways to organize the practice and maximize revenue. So we were able to build that practice, and then as he retired out, we moved it to Village. So, Village has always just really, worked. We do have an administrative fee that is for administrative things. So things like the portal and, now that, maintaining Facebook and articles. And and that just has always allowed us to spend a little bit more time with patients. And so it's different. It's the insurance model at Village, but a little different. And then the new venture, the Westport Medical and Wellness Center, where, I'd love to tell you in a few minutes about Dr. Letha, because she's great. We are doing something that is a new model. So we really are trying to educate the consumer, and that's part of what I hope I can do today on the podcast. It kind of takes insurance out of the mix. So you're going to spend a lot less time, dealing with insurance companies, but it really is very affordable. And so for one annual fee or a monthly fee, you're able to offer that higher level of care, the extended checkup, the, having more time with your doctor, having that back and forth. Because studies show that if you have good primary care, like 80 to 90% of your medical needs can be taken care of by that primary care home. And it's, the classic example would be someone who's coming in over and over for stomach aches. And, in the insurance model, maybe the primary care physician feels very rushed and they do a few things, but then the person's back a couple months later, and again and again. So as opposed to when you have someone who has that luxury of being able, because of the way the model is structured, to take more time, you can get a little bit more to the heart of it and, maybe address, because it may be stress, like a lot of what we are feeling and what, a lot of medical illness is stress related. So if you have a physician who, can take a little bit more time and then maybe do a telehealth follow-up in a month, you're going to reduce the need for visits. And most importantly, you're going to improve that patient's quality of life. Mm-hmm. And as I have said to you before, and that's very important. And for me, it's also important because happy or parents that feel better can parent better. So that it's the domino effect, right? Yeah.
So do you have time for your TikTok life?
I do, not as much as I would like, for sure. But I still, when I go into patient exam room, I often come out and I'm like, I say that so many times a day. Like, I should just make a TikTok. Or if there's something new coming up, like I just made one the other day. I try to release 2 a week for Village, and then we very much are wanting to do them for the Westport Medical and Wellness Center also, because I do think there's a big need for the medical information, and people are getting their information that way. So need to accept it. And so I made one last week about the new COVID vaccine booster that's coming out that's going to be against Omicron. So of course, encouraging people to get that and just still highlighting. And then at the Wellness Center, our nurse practitioner made a great video this morning, similar. So and it's just such a fun way to disseminate info. Yeah.
And you're good at it. What's the most popular or your favorite TikTok?
I would say that my most popular TikToks have really been addressing the LGBTQ community, and that they get the most views. So I know there's a real need out there for them to have access to, more information and just support. I'm not necessarily telling them anything new, but I'm hoping I'm offering them just support.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's important to come from a doctor.
Yes, and a queer doctor at that. It's always helpful.
One who does not play one on TV.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's ahead?
Just on TikTok.
As you've started the Wellness Center, what do you have anything you'd like to add? Anything you'd like to build on? Anything you've learned since you've opened?
That is a great question. I have remembered, because as I said, this is not the first practice that I have been part of starting. This is the first one that I have done as the sole CEO, and then I have my wonderful team. I've got my office manager in Letha, but it's a lot of work, and there's always going to be bumps. I think that's part of being an entrepreneur is you learn, right? Where they say I'm in an entrepreneur group, which I love, but it's fail forward. Every misstep is a lesson. So, But things, they're going great. We have our grand opening next Thursday. I had at the ABC auction that.
By the time this airs, it will have already happened.
Oh, okay.
Too bad.
Well, we had our grand opening. I was able to secure the Colony Pizza truck through the, ABC House fundraiser. So, it's anything that gives back is great. But, I think it's, getting the word out there is so important. And I want people really to understand, to come in, to meet with the team. We offer meet and greets with Dr. Letha. So, because it is important, like, pediatricians, I don't know if you know, but they do something called a prenatal, where you talk to the physician ahead of time because you want to make sure it's going to be a good fit. Often on both sides. Like occasionally there have been prenatals where I said, I don't think we're a good fit, but very rarely. So Dr. Letha is happily doing meet and greets because it is a relationship and you want to feel comfortable with the doctor. As I say, I want everyone to leave the Westport Medical and Wellness Center feeling like they've had a warm hug. And so, I think so far things are going great. We've already gotten some patients, some traction, but we need more, in order for the model to work. But it takes time.
Sure.
How many times have I said Rome wasn't built in a day, right?
So what's, if we're talking about health and medicine and wellness and things to keep in mind as we end this podcast, what's your message? What do you want people to come away with knowing or thinking or feeling?
I want people, especially the adults in our community, to prioritize their health and well-being. It's so hard, if you're either young in your career or not young in your career, or if you have children, like there's so much else drawing your attention away. And it's easy to get overwhelmed and then ignore your own health. So if you haven't scheduled your annual checkup, if, you haven't maybe taken the time to wonder, why do I have trouble sleeping? What's going on in my own body? How can I take better care of myself? This really is about helping people take care of themselves so that they're, feeling better and able to function as well as they can. So I think it's really prioritize yourself. It will benefit the rest of the people in your life, whether it's children or relatives, partners. The more you can prioritize yourself and focus in on that for a little bit, and that's okay. That doesn't mean you're being selfish. I think that, people, there's a lot of self-criticism. There's a lot of shame around, I went for a massage today. People almost feel, a little bit shameful to admit it, but it's important and it's going to help you feel more at peace, and that's just going to benefit the universe. So, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Nikki Gorman, thank you for
Dan, thank you.
Sharing all the info about Westport Medical and Wellness Center. As we said, right behind CVS in that nice white building.
Yes.
On Whitney
now gray.
Street.
Yes.
Now gray.
Yeah.
Okay. With chickens in the back?
Yeah, chickens in the back, fresh eggs. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So, we're gathering those daily and getting them, so we like to have a fun giveaway of a free egg for someone who comes in for a tour. So,
right.
Yeah.
Definitely a first for a Westport medical practice, at least in the 2020s. Maybe not in the 1920s, but...
It's true. Yeah, a lot more bartering back then. Yes. No, yes, please. Come in, think about your health, come have a checkup, understand our model a little bit better, and meet Dr. Letha, and you will absolutely feel like you've had a warm hug, I promise.
Hugs to you. Thank you, Dr. Nikki Gorman, and thanks for watching 06880, the podcast.
Thank you.